Hello everybody, my name is William McAdam, and if you don't know me, this is my channel. I like to talk about queer issues and issues regarding the LGBTQ plus community and what me and you can do to solve them. In today's episode, we'll be going over why I personally believe the gay community is the most persecuted in the world. Alright, so let's get into it. Starting off, in no country, is it illegal to be, black, Indian, or no countries, will legally persecute you based off of race. Now, we can get into systemic persecution of people of color in the West. We can talk about the persecution of indigenous peoples in India, in Australia, and this and that, right? However, and those things do exist, right? That they really truly do, right? However, in legislation, it's almost non-existent to see legislative persecution of people based off of their race. It's very, very uncommon, right? Now, however, once we look at the countries like Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, mainly Islamic countries, we do see persecution of gay, homosexual, and LGBTQ plus people, right? Yeah, and it's like, so it's fair, and you'll see religious persecution, you'll see this type of persecution, right? However, obviously, people can choose their religion. People can't choose their race or their sexuality. And so homosexuality is really one of the only things that you are born with that you'll be persecuted for, right? In so many different fucking countries, It's really, really despicable, right? And it's really just, it's something that obviously has to change, There's no quick fix to it, right? But that's just one of the things, proving how persecuted LGBTQ plus individuals are. No, I live in Canada, actually, all right? Last year, I believe the statistics were 47 or 41% of all hate crime victims were gay, lesbian, or bisexual, or LGBTQ plus community identifying individuals, all right? So 41% of all hate crime individuals were LGBTQ plus, all right? Okay, got that? Now let's look at another number, okay? Only 4.4% of Canada's population is LGBTQ+, but we still make up nearly half of all hate crimes. Why is that? And even with that, people still want to say, oh, well, the people of color are more persecuted, black individuals are more persecuted, and that's not true. Just because we got a month, just because we got pride flags, just because we got this, that doesn't mean that we are not still the most persecuted group in the world, all right? And I really, really, really believe that, and I really stick by that, because look at the numbers. We only make up 4.4% of the population, yet still we make up for nearly half of all hate crimes, and you want to get in my face talking about stuff, oh, you guys got it good. That's insane. It's fucking insane to say. Really. Really, okay? Also, one thing that a lot of people overlook is that most gay people actually do not have that community, if you know what I mean, right? So take, for example, you're somebody of a marginalized race, all right, and you're born into, a family of that race too. Your family's that race, You also probably know other people who belong to that race. There's country, there's culture, there's all this, and there's people around you, even just your mother, your father, are that race, And for homosexuals, we don't get that. Obviously, our parents aren't gay, And in a lot of areas, where I live, St. John, Canada, I don't really get a lot of other gay people, I don't really have that sense of community, right? And when you don't have that sense of community, you're really a lot more open to persecution, to hatred, because you don't have people to unite with you, to stand by you, to defend you, to help you, you know what I mean? Right? And it's a lot bigger of an issue than people like to talk about, all right? It's really important that you have that sense of community, these people around you, right? And a lot of people get that, right? If you belong to this marginalized community, if it's a race, even if it's a religious group, you often find that a lot, For example, the persecuted Christian community in Japan, I suppose, And, there are so many examples where nearly every other marginalized group has that almost just automatic community the moment that they're born, but because they belong to this race, and obviously their parents are that race, but we don't, and it's very uncommon for people of a certain race to not at least born to, or to not at least have some sense of community or shared struggle with other people, with their family often, And I just think it's really, really hard, being deprived of that sense of community. And that drives persecution because, again, we can't defend ourselves if we do not know other LGBTQ plus people, if there's not other LGBTQ people near us, and shit like that, okay? And number 3, okay. So, I'm in Canada, right? Now, in the Canadian Constitution, it's called the Charter of Bill and Rights. Well, there is a Canadian Constitution, right? But in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right? That's kind of our go-to thing, right? There is something called, I forget what section it is, actually. And this sounds really ignorant and uneducated, but I do forget, okay? And it says all individuals have the freedom, a right to religion, So we live in a secular country, right? Everybody gets to choose the religion. You can believe in whatever the fuck you want, right? But not us gays. And you think, what? No, you gays can practice whatever you want. And although that's true, I can go out and say, oh, I'm Christian, I'm this, and not get arrested. Obviously, that's true. However, do we really have that right and that freedom to religion when we're barred from church doors, when we can't go to mosques, when we can't go to synagogue? A lot of synagogues, Judaism isn't that homophobic, when we can't go to this type of religious building, this type of religious building, when this type actively believes that we are going to burn in hell for all eternity, when so many religious services are denied to us, when we are persecuted by those communities, do we really have that religious freedom if we cannot go to those places, and if those people themselves don't support us? Do we really have that freedom? Do we? Really? And it really pisses me off when, listen, I have to say this, and I think a lot of people are going to disagree with me, right? But if you're gay, you've probably heard of the Universalist Church, right? And that's a very maybe not pro-gay, but it claims to be accepting of gay individuals and LGBT people, right? But I really would warn everybody to be very cautious of that, to not subscribe to those faiths, to not support those places, because even though, they're saying, oh, we feel like this, no, of course we're like you, your book says otherwise. In your book, it says I'm finna go to hell. In your book, it says that I'm evil. It says that I'm wrong. And whether or not you say that you believe in that, that's going to show up in your bias. That's going to show up, right? And, not always. I believe that a lot of people who claim to be universalists truly do. Universalist Christians, that is. I'm not talking about religious pluralists. Universalist Christians, all right? But I think a lot of universal Christians do carry that bias within them, right? Even if they claim not to, right? And, even if they don't, again, just don't subscribe to a faith that, says that you're going to hell, right? Even if people are saying, oh, no. Just don't, right? All right? And even furthermore than that, Christianity is such a limited version, it's such a limited aspect, it's such a stupid fucking ignorant thought process regarding God and regarding divine and regarding theology, just theologically ignorant and absent religion. And again, I just have to say this, just to, be a little feminist in this episode, since, Jesus is the man, the God of the Old Testament is portrayed as Father, a religion that is without the goddess is halfway to atheism, Okay, and, that's number 3, that's all the religion shit, right? And number 4 is, this kind of ties back into number 2, not having that community. We're so marginalized, and since we have so few people. So few people are gay, so few people are this, so few people, are willing to support us in a sense that actually matters. Because, again, waving little rainbow flags, saying, oh, happy Pride Month, happy June, that's not really deeper support on that level. And when we get that, that's nice, and I really do appreciate that, but we have to remember that the majority of actual support will come from your own community, and oftentimes, like a lot of times, you just don't have that community. Maybe you'll have a few people here, you'll have people here, but at the end of the day, homosexuals are a very, very, very tiny, minute part of the population of the world, and it's really, really important that when we do have that community, that we strengthen it. And even if we don't have that community, we find even just 1 or 2 individuals and try to make our own little just community, like just our own little group of people, all right? And it's so important to have that community, but when we just can't, and oftentimes we just can't have that on the big, deeper, more important scale, because there's just so fucking few of us, all right? And I think that's kind of, I think that was 5, or 4, I don't know. But, that's kind of how I want to just end this video, and thank you for watching, so I'll see you guys later.